For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for instant analysis of USC basketball's 66-61 win over UC Irvine in the Galen Center. Now, Shotgun, the Trojans actually faced the largest deficit they've had all season long, but talking to the players and coaches after the game, it seemed like this was something they needed at this point of the season.
Yeah, going into halftime, the Trojans were down 8 points. They started out the game great, got out to a 12-2 start, and then UC Irvine finished the half on a 34-16 run, and USC just wasn't playing very good. You know, they had 8 turnovers in the first half, which is something that's been plaguing them the last couple of games with turnovers. They weren't playing good enough defense. And Andy Enfield at the half didn't say much, he said. You know, he went in and said, this is on you guys. This is on you. Chris Capco, the associate head coach, went in, was a little fiery and said, we've done as much as we can. We've led you to the water. Now you've got a drink. And so Isaiah Mobley and Chavez Goodwin, a couple of the older players on the team, spoke a little bit with the team and said, we don't want this unbeaten streak to end. USC now 11-0 after this victory, top 10 team. Don't want to give that up. So they said, we got to come out and play with better energy and play with more intensity. And they did that in the second half. And that was the big difference. And those two guys I just mentioned, Chavez Goodwin and Isaiah Mobley, led the way. They were dominant inside. 45 combined points from the two of them, and they led the way with their intensity, with their attacking nature, the aggressiveness that they showed, and the rest of the team kind of followed along.
Mm-hmm. Now, maybe for the more casual basketball fan, you knew coming in that UC Irvine was going to present a good challenge for USC. Why was that?
Yeah, UC Irvine actually, coming into this game, had the best net ranking of any opponent that USC will face. They actually have the number 2 field goal defense in the nation, and USC's number 4. So I expected kind of a low-scoring game, expected it to, kind of be mucked up a little bit. Both teams shot a little bit better than I actually anticipated, but USC again holds an opponent under 40%. UC Irvine shoots 37, USC shoots over 40%, and that was the difference. They were able to get a couple more buckets because they shot a little bit better in the second half, but UC Irvine is going to be a tournament team in my opinion. They were picked to finish second in the Big West. I think with Colin Welp, the way he played tonight, if he continues that, he's going to be the Big West Player of the Year. He had 24 points. Did take him 25 shots, but he made some very tough shots. USC defended him pretty well, made it tough on him. He made some tough shots. I think that the Anteaters are going to be a team to contend with and could give some teams some trouble when it comes to March, just because they can match up with pretty much any Power 5 team with their bigs, which is kind of interesting. USC, one of the biggest teams in the nation, one of the tallest teams in the nation. So it was interesting to see how they would attack that, and it was kind of it was a game, it was some game management going back and forth where USC tried to go with a small lineup at one point, and immediately you see Russell Turner from UC Irvine go to his bench, get Welp in the game. One possession, USC has to make a change. So, there were some different things like that going back and forth, and I thought the scouting report that the Anteaters had on USC was really good, especially in the first half. They were kind of prepared for everything, and it took USC's players stepping up and making more plays in the second half, and I think that's what they did.
In that sense, what are the specific learning lessons from this game?
For USC, I think this was good for them because they haven't been down like this at the half. They haven't faced I don't think they faced a double-digit deficit this year, and they were down by 10 points at one point right before the half. So to let them know we can come back if we need to. And Andy Enfield mentioned, and I was thinking the same thing, a couple years ago they had a team that won 26 games, and he said 13 of those were double-digit comebacks. They just seem to come back from double digits all the time. This team has been much more consistent, not as run-heavy, where they're just streaky, going, catch fire at one point and be really cold. They've been able to get buckets, and that's because of those two guys down low. They can get you a bucket, throw the ball down low. It doesn't take a jump shot every time to get some points. And tonight, they really struggled to shoot from the outside. They struggled from threes. Their 3 starting guards were combined 4 of 23. Didn't play very well, didn't shoot very well. They picked it up in some other areas, but the big men carried them, and that's what they're going to need to be able to do it in different ways. And that's what's unique about this team, I think. It's not just the Evan Mobley show like it was last year, and Taj Edey kind of stepping in and being that number 2 guy, being Robin to his Batman. This year it can be a different guy every single night. Just one consistent for the last week and a half, 3 weeks has been Isaiah Mobley. He's been fantastic, continues to improve, and just you see different guys stepping up every night, but he's been the guy that's been pretty consistent for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, you wouldn't see it from the stat line, but Andy Enfield praised Boogie Ellis for what he did in the second half tonight. What did you see from him, and what did he do?
Yeah, Boogie Ellis came from Memphis. He was a shooting guard. USC has transitioned him to a lead guard, and Andy Enfield wants him to run the show. And he said he was so happy with the way that Boogie, even when he wasn't shooting well, I think he was 1 for 4 tonight, had a three-pointer early in the game, but didn't shoot it great. He didn't force anything, didn't force the action, wasn't trying to get his points, wasn't trying to get his stats. He was running the offense and getting USC in the sets they needed to be in, which was get the ball down low to Isaiah and Chavez and let them go to work. And he was really excited by the way that he played defense and contributed on offense in different ways than just being able to score the ball. So I think they're excited with the continued development of Boogie Ellis, as well as some of those other guys that have been coming into this program, and you kind of wonder, okay, are they going to buy into everything that the team philosophy? And that was one of the things that Andy Enfield said, not necessarily about Boogie Ellis, but he said he was excited that the guys realized we just need to go out and make winning plays. And he said that's the big takeaway for him from this game is that at halftime they weren't playing that way, and they came out after the half and everybody was determined to make the winning play and to help the team get to 11-0.
Now this game wraps up a 3-game homestand for the Trojans. I know it wasn't their best games, but they are still undefeated. What do they take away from this homestand?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. They played really well leading up to this homestand. Coming off a big road win at Washington State, their first Pac-12 road win, and then it just wasn't consistent play in this homestand. They didn't play up to their potential in these 3 games, and it comes as they're rising up the rankings. So, there's a little bit more pressure on them, a little bit more. So now they're going to hit the road for a 2-game road stand where they're going to play Georgia Tech in Phoenix, and then they're going to go to Oklahoma City and play Oklahoma State. So that's going to be a neutral site game on an NBA court, but an hour away from Stillwater, so expect a lot of orange and black there for that one. But this is a really challenging road trip just because you're playing in 2 different cities, you're playing in 3 days, and trying to do the travel and doing everything else to go along with it with 2 Power 5 programs. So I'm curious to see how they bounce back from this homestand where they didn't play to their full potential but still found a way to win. If that they could take away some things from this game, from those 2 earlier wins in the home stretch, and be able to materialize that into a successful road trip where they take on Georgia Tech and a couple of familiar faces with Jordan Usher and Kyle Sturdivant, former Trojans, and then go to Oklahoma State and play in what could be a hostile environment for them.
As you mentioned, 11 games in, undefeated. What have you seen overall from this team? What do you need to see going forward?
I think the most intriguing thing is how many guys have taken big steps in their game. I asked Chavez Goodwin and Isaiah Mobley at the end of the press conference. We got the one last question, and it ended up being about a 6-minute question because
it was like podcast mode.
Yeah, I asked them, where have they seen the most improvement from the other guy? Because they face each other in practice, throughout their careers at USC, and they went back and forth just talking about how much they've seen the maturity of each other and the work that they put in. They talked about how it's a competition for them almost to see who can get in the gym first, who's sweating. Getting their work in first. So that's the type of leadership that USC needs, and that's the type of leadership that leads teams to perform beyond the individual players, but to the sum of their parts. And I think that's what's unique about this team. Last year was a fantastic run, and it was all keyed by Evan Mobley. The offense ran through him. He protected the rim. He did everything. That's why he was the number 3 pick. He does a little bit of everything. But this team, different contributor every night. And, you've seen Drew Peterson had a monster game the other night. You've seen Boogie Ellis go off for 20-something points. You've seen Ethan Anderson or guys come off the bench. Isaiah White, not getting a ton of minutes, but, bringing energy. You've seen just different guys finding different roles and different ways to help the team. And, with Isaiah Mobley playing the way he's playing, 5th double-double in 6 games, 4th consecutive 20-point performance in the Galen Center. He fell a bucket away from resetting his career high, which he set, I think, twice already this season. He's been playing phenomenal, and he's going and getting rebounds out of his area. Chavez Goodwin has taken a huge step. So the improvement of these individuals and how it's come together to create a unique team that does it in different ways every night, but it all starts with defense. Their defense has been phenomenal. That's why they're in the top 5 in field goal percentage, and they've held every opponent now. They're 11-0 when they hold opponents under 40%. So, that's a pretty good mark for them, and that's kind of was the key number last year for them as well. So as long as they bring it on defense, they're going to be in every single game, and they're finding ways to win on the offensive end, and they're not necessarily having to have these long stretches, scoreless droughts or field goalless droughts. They can find a way to get a bucket when things aren't necessarily going and everyone's not hitting on a night like tonight. They were able to get the ball down and low and let the big guys go to work, or someone on the wing has been stepping up and making some shots as well. So it's a little bit different team than last year, but it's a very intriguing team and a team that you could see has the potential to make some serious noise through in the Pac-12 and after that as well in the Pac-12 tournament and the NCAA tournament.
Alrighty, Shotgun, any final thoughts before we wrap it up here in the Galen Center?
This is my final one for at least a little bit, so a little bit bittersweet there. But it's good to see the USC get a win in a game where they struggled a little bit in the beginning and found a way to win. And we'll see how they can carry that into this road trip. I think that's going to be a really interesting 2-game set just to see where this team is at. What's the mentality coming off this 3-game set where you won? You didn't play quite to your potential. Can you get that on the road? Because sometimes when you go on the road and everyone's together, everyone, that camaraderie, you play a little bit better. And, us against the world type of mentality. So I'm curious to see what this team will do in these next 2 games. And I'll be following along with them on the trek. So I'll be covering the games from Phoenix and Oklahoma City before departing from LA officially.
Yeah. It's not your last instant, though. I wouldn't let basketball be your last instant. I don't think Ryan would let me do that. So we'll be back for Friday's presser with Lincoln Riley. But that's going to wrap it up here from the Galen Center for Shotgun Spratling. I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.